Hi, I'm Cam Benton with Pathfinder's 4x4 in Saguache County, Colorado. Today I'm going to tell you why I don't like to permanently affix an electric winch to my four-wheel drive vehicles. That's probably calling the emperor naked because most people love a winch, but they do one job and they've got a handful of penalties in my opinion. We'll go in and talk a little bit more about that. In the meantime, check us out online. Our website is pathfinders4x4.com. We do rentals, tours, and off-road driving school. Like us on Facebook and you receive a discount now on every booking. So let's go talk about an electric winch and why I choose not to mount one permanently on our rigs. Hi, I'm Cam Benton with Pathfinder's 4x4 in Saguache County, Colorado. Today something came to mind because somebody asked me why I don't have an electric winch mounted on any of my vehicles. And so there's about 12 good reasons for me as to why I don't think it's a good idea to have a winch mounted. So let's just get into it, and I thought I'd put a video together so you can see what's going on in my head when it comes to having a winch permanently mounted on the front of a vehicle. First of all, a winch is rarely used. It's an item that when you need it can be very useful, very helpful. However, you're probably, and the average driver is probably going to use that, really need it once every 5 years. Granted, when you need it, it might be really useful. But in all my years of four-wheeling, there's only been one time where I really wished I had a winch mounted to the front of the vehicle. In that case, I was in a twisted, kind of off-kilter situation with a broken drive shaft, and then as it turns out we ended up getting that hand winched out of there with a high lift anyway, and the high lift was even broken. So even then I didn't need the winch. It would have made things a little bit easier, but I really didn't need it. So I guess my first question is, why carry around an item that you're going to use once every few years, maybe once every decade, and there's other ways to get around that. So to me, just the demand for it is fairly low. The other thing is a winch only does one job. It doesn't pull, it doesn't push, it does pull from the front, but it's limited in what its duty really is ever going to be. A high lift jack, for example, is completely different. A high lift will perform multiple jobs. It'll be a bead breaker, it'll be a jack, it can be a spreader, it can be a winch. So I like carrying gear that is going to serve me in multiple ways depending upon what the demand might be. And a winch only does one thing. Winches are expensive. Average cost is going to be about $500, maybe up to double that, depending upon what type of winch and what kind of cable versus rope and all of those situations you might deal with. But winches aren't cheap. The number 4 reason is that it requires special consideration on how you're going to mount the winch. An aftermarket bumper, if you decide to go that way, will cost $500 to maybe $1,500 depending upon the front bumper that you choose for your rig. So if you're going to get a bumper anyway, maybe it's a small consideration. For a lot of people, they go back and forth and end up buying a bumper because they want to mount a winch. Again, that's more consideration to give it as far as how you're going to mount it, and that's more expense. Aftermarket bumpers will cost $500 or more. Again, so we've got quite a bit of expense already just faced with getting that winch mounted to the vehicle. Electric winches are heavy. The average is probably going to be about 100 pounds, which may not sound like that much, except the arm and moment of how you're going to carry that is at the extreme of the rig's center of gravity. Arm and moment is pilot speak. Basically, we're aware when we're trained as commercial pilots to figure out where the center of gravity is and what that means for the performance of the vehicle that we're in that case, a plane. Same thing applies to off-roading. People don't give it a lot of consideration, but it really is an important point to understand that if we have weight or mass distributed at an extreme arm, that ends up causing problems and rollover situations and just performance situations that are going to be limitations for us. Our suspension is already under duress, and that weight at an extreme point on the rig can end up being really detrimental. So that 100 pounds at the very front of the vehicle is hard to deal with. It's best to carry mass in the center. And the other thing is too, ounces make pounds. And what I mean by that is that we want to save weight wherever we can. We've got enough weight. We're carrying chains and shackles and hopefully extra fuel, and pretty soon we've got a rig that's rolling down trail that's potentially pretty heavy. And we're asking that suspension to do a lot of work, and we're asking it to hold up and get us back home. And so I want to save weight wherever I can. A winch just doesn't make sense to me because it is a pretty heavy item. Another thing that a winch will cause a problem with is it encumbers access to our engine compartment. We're under the hood all the time, so why make that more difficult? If we're changing spark plugs or checking coolant or just fluids or whatever, you always have to work around that winch that's mounted. Not a big point maybe, but to me it's a consideration. It may not be to you, but to me it's a consideration to have that bulky mass out in front when I'm under the hood as often as I am. A winch is usually mounted in the center right in front of the grill, and it's a fairly big item to have there because it's blocking airflow. It's impeding some important clean air that is meant for the transmission cooler, the air conditioning condenser, the radiator, of course, and so that grill is slotted for a reason. And it's slotted for a reason, and the reason is the clean air needs to get through those radiator and cooling fins so that everything's working in the engine and transmission area. So anything that blocks and impedes that flow of fresh, clean air, that's not a good thing. I don't want to have anything up there, and I don't put big aftermarket lighting there for that reason, and I certainly don't put a winch there for that reason. You're asking a fan on the backside to draw that air through, and that just makes the work all the harder. So again, I just don't like the location of how a winch has to be mounted. Along those lines, it'll create drag at highway speeds. The coefficient of drag is exponential, so as we get moving through the air faster, that drag that's caused by a winch disrupting the clean airflow over the vehicle ends up creating more drag. And why is that important? Miles per gallon. Now, we don't drive these rigs to get great gas mileage, I understand that, but if we're on expedition, 1/10 of a mile per gallon over a few hundred miles might mean the difference between you making it to the next stop and you coming up a little bit short. And so again, if I can save weight, save expense, carry more fuel, and keep a cleaner drag profile going down the trail, and this will really matter when we're going at faster speeds, whether I'm at a high speed part of the trail or on highway to get there. A small consideration, but again, that winch will cost me a little penalty if I don't consider that. So for me, that's important. For some people, maybe not so much. Along those lines, this is in the eye of the beholder, but I think a winch is ugly. A lot of people think they look cool, and they'll mount them just for that, because they want to look cool. And if you like to cut off your sleeves and go around and show off the guns, and you're that type of person, okay, I get it, that's fine. I'm not that person. And so for me, I like to have a clean look. I like to have a balanced look, and a winch that maybe doesn't have the cable spooled on real neatly, or the hook off to one side so it's hooked up, just doesn't look good. It looks bulky, and it seems, to me at least, ugly. I like ramp appeal when I walk up to my planes or walk up to my rigs or motorcycles or whatever. I like to walk into a neat, aesthetically pleasing scene, and a winch looks ugly to me. But other people will say that doesn't interfere with the clean look, it makes the look. So everybody has their own opinion on that. But for me, it is a consideration that I throw into the mix. More importantly, usually other drivers on trail have a winch. If you get in a real bad way and a winch is needed, usually in a place like Moab or a place like some of the heavily used trails in Colorado like Uray and whatnot, somebody's coming along and they've probably got a winch. And guess what? You can borrow it. And they're going to be happy that they finally get to use it because they paid a lot of money and they haven't had a chance to use it yet. So winches are available. Why carry yours? You can't count on that, but it's a consideration. Another consideration is that the winch really only does one job, and really it only does half a job, meaning it only pulls one way. That one-way pull is to the front. That's when it works the best. So if I have to pull something towards my vehicle or my vehicle towards something from the front, the winch is going to work. It doesn't work real well trying to get it out any other direction, but especially the rear. You can do it if you have multiple anchors, multiple snatch blocks, enough cable. You can get it to do that. but it really is not an efficient way to pull from any other direction except what's out front. And so again, it just limits its usefulness in my mind, so it doesn't offset the penalties that come with carrying one around. The other thing is too, when you put angles into any type of winching scenario, you increase the danger. So again, maybe not the best way to apply physics to get something out or unstuck. And let's face it, finally, my number 12 point is that buddies are quicker and often better, usually safer, to pull you out. With the use of snatch straps and tow straps and chains and a buddy, we can, in a quicker fashion and usually as safe or safer fashion, get physics to instantly, like a snatch strap, get somebody back out instead of groaning away with a winch. In dangerous conditions, go with a friend. It's funner anyway. In those types of scenarios, when I'm on expedition and I have a friend or two or 5 or 12, that's definitely preferred. I don't need to carry a winch in those circumstances. So a winch does some great work, but overall, when you weigh it out, this is basically saying the emperor's naked. And I'm probably a lone voice in the wilderness of four-wheeling that says, I don't like to carry a winch. And if you do, fantastic, more power to you. But for me, there's one reason to carry a winch, and there's 12 reasons why not to. And for me, that is an easy choice to make. I don't carry an electric winch and have it mounted on my vehicle permanently. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If you like this video, or if you've got other ideas for videos, let us know. Our website is pathfinders4x4.com. We do rentals, tours, and off-road driving school, and hope to hear from you soon.